Warning! The following is a fictitious newscast recorded by some teenagers in a dining room with a Mac. I'm sorry. Oh, I missed.
Welcome to Colonial Z, your news station for the colonial era. Today's episode focuses on succession. This is Erin Donahue, reporting live from the Republican Party platform. It's 1860, and that means that it's time to elect a new president. Today, the Republican Party platform has written up the following 17 declarations. Here's my partner, Dylan Keith, here to give you more information about the declarations.
Thanks, Aaron. Recently, the Republican Party has issued their platform, which is a list of their party principles for the upcoming election. In order to facilitate understanding in the viewers, we have summarized the 17 provided points. The first 2 points state that the past 4 years of history have made it evident that the Republican Party is needed, and that regardless of if the Republicans win the upcoming election, they will continue to uphold the Constitution of the United States. Points 3 through 6 reflect on how, unlike their Democratic brethren, the Republicans have never made any threats of disunion. Furthermore, the Democrats have far exceeded the worst expectations of the Republicans by attempting to force slavery upon Kansas and by threatening secession if their demands are not met. The next 3 points, points 7 through 9, state that the claim that the Constitution supports and calls for the expansion of slavery is intrinsically false, because the United States is fundamentally a free nation. Because of this, the reopening of the slave trade is in direct opposition to the Constitution and should be dealt with. Points 7 and 11 briefly talk about how, through fraudulent actions by the Democrats, Kansas has been blocked from becoming a state through popular sovereignty. They indicate that Kansas should immediately be admitted into the Union with a constitution written and approved by the people. Point 12 reinforces the need for a high protective tariff that will bolster wages, remunerate prices, and bolster the economy. Points 13 and 14 deal with the rights of citizens and with peoples naturalized into citizens. They state that there should not be any more changes in laws that discriminate against citizens, naturalized or native, whether in the United States or in another land. Points 15 and 16 talk about internal improvements, such as river and harbor improvements and the construction of a railroad to the Pacific Ocean, which would all be great benefits to the American people. The last point, point 17, calls for the unification and cooperation of all citizens in supporting and applying the views and beliefs of the Republican Party in order to uphold the sanctity of the Constitution. Back to you, Aaron.
Thank you, Dylan. Lincoln made his first inaugural address today, stating that the Union of the United States is perpetual. This means forever. No government has the ability to terminate the Constitution, and the Union is said to endure forever, making it impossible to destroy it. The Union is older than the Constitution. In 1787, the Constitution was established to form a more perfect union. If the Union is destructed by one or a part of the states, the Union will become less perfect than before the Constitution. We all remember those days. If the minority make a precedent and decide to divide and ruin us, a union, there will be a war. The majority refuse to be controlled by minority. The idea of succession is essentially anarchy. Our majority right now is held by constitutional checks, limitations, and changes in popular opinion. When the South decides to secede, this will become obsolete. Physically, we cannot separate. The United States is one piece of land. We should think calmly about this situation, Lincoln states. Nothing valuable can be lost by taking time. Those of us who are dissatisfied, we have the Constitution unimpaired. The issue of civil war is in the hands of the people. There is no conflict without you, the people, creating conflict. The United States is not an enemy. In order to be friendly, we have to keep the peace and remain a union. This is the wish of President Lincoln in his inaugural address. Thank you.
Let's travel to South Carolina, where Corinne has breaking news on the causes of secession in the South.
Today, December 20th, 1860, The state of South Carolina has just renounced its place in the Union and has seceded. This comes after the South Carolina Convention drafted an ordinance of secession. The prominent Charleston lawyer and politician Charles Memminger was charged with writing a detailed explanation of and defense of the state's actions. In this ordinance, they stated how on April 2nd, 1852, the convention assembled and declared that the frequent violations of the Constitution by the federal government and its encroachments on the reserved rights fully justifies the state in withdrawing from the federal union, but chose not to do so due to the wishes of the other slaveholding states. They also stated that since this time further encroachments have ensued, leading South Carolina to feel the need to exercise their right to secede once again. They claim that in the Constitution it states that no person held to service or labor in one state under the laws thereof, escaping into another state in consequence of any law or regulation therein, be discharged from such service or labor, but shall be delivered up on claim of the party to whom such service or labor may be due. They argue that the states Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Iowa have enacted either nullified the acts of Congress or render any attempt to carry them out useless. Say that the constitutional compact has been broken and disregarded, so South Carolina is thereby released from her obligation. They state that the non-slaveholding states have made this government destructive. It has announced that the South shall be excluded from the common territory, that the judicial tribunals shall be made sectional, and that a war must be waged against slavery until it shall cease throughout the United States. Carolina has thus renounced its ties with the Union and has claimed herself a separate and independent state, the power to levy war, conclude peace, form alliances, establish commerce, and many other acts that may be performed by an independent state. And that's the news.
Thank you, Corinne, and that was a lovely usage of the mustache. Now we'll move on to Ben, who will be giving us information about Alexander Stephens, a large advocate of slavery in Savannah, Georgia.
The secession of the South had its main supporters like Alexander H. Stephens. Once Alexander Stephens' home state of Georgia acted in secession, he agreed to serve as president of the Confederacy. He is most well known for the speech he gave recently in Savannah that laid out why he thought the dissolution of the Union was right. In his speech, he argued that the Confederacy's Constitution was representing a significant improvement over that of the United States. He said that the great principle of religious liberty, which was the honor and pride of the old Constitution, is still maintained and secured, that all the essentials of the old Constitution which have endeared it to the hearts of the American people have been preserved and perpetuated. So, taking the whole new Constitution, I have no hesitancy in giving it as my judgment that it is decidedly better than the old. He also stated that this reason of the South's secession was that of preserving state sovereignty over an all too powerful government. He continued to say that white supremacy and slavery still played a major motivation for the South's secession. The South have many reasons for seceding. The original tariffs put forth by the United States government angered them. They feel as if they are being taken advantage of by a government who is abusing its power, and with the motivations of slavery, taxes, and constitutional rights and liberties, they seceded.
It was foreshadowed in the writings of William H. Seward, who said that slaveholders and freeholders could not exist in the same nation. He's kind of like the colonial Nostradamus.
Well, that's all the time we have today, folks. Thanks for watching Colonial Z, and tune in next week to witness the labor movement.